Welcome to the Action Shooting Show. Tonight I have Mark Rebke, I have Tiger Schultz, and in audio but not in video, we have Mike Ford. So he's kind of a little Sasquatch, so you don't really need to see him anyways. So been a while. It's been a while since all four of us is on here. I am thrilled that we're all on again. This is great. Tonight we're gonna go over I guess match prep. So view this as like maybe it's the beginning of the season, you're gearing up for match season, or you got that real big, you got a lot of matches through the year. Maybe this is the really, really important one. So we're gonna kind of start going over that. And this kind of came from me and Mike actually spent about 4 hours out today doing some of this in preparation for Legion that's coming up in 2 weeks. So we kind of wanted to get ahead of it instead of, as these guys will probably attest to, sometimes that match sneaks up on you and you're leaving Thursday night and it is Wednesday night and you're trying to get some of this stuff done. You're pumping out ammo on the 650 and just so you can go out and confirm your zero and all this other stuff we're going to talk about. So we'll give you some ideas and we'll kind of go from there, kind of all share our theories on it. And as I kind of mentioned, let me start off the first thing, because I see this, people show up to matches. If you got a match coming up, confirm your zeros on your guns. I think all of us have RO'd, have run matches. There are so many people that come up with guns that are not zeroed. There's no way that they can be zeroed by what they're doing or what they're not doing. So what zero you use? 50, 25, 36, 100, 200, 600. You decide that yourself. We're not going to go over that. That's not for this topic, but have a good zero. So I would say for most people, 5 rounds is probably the fewest that you want to shoot. You may want to shoot more. Does that seem right to you guys?
Yeah.
Absolutely be confident of your zero at whatever distance it is that you want. Mark, you got anything to add onto that?
Yeah, if you're the other thing I'd just add is have a clue where your pistol hits. Maybe you don't have to drift the sights, but so many people don't even have a clue where their pistol ammo is hitting. Nowadays, everyone's starting to run red dots, and you actually do have to zero those. But like if you're running iron sights, it may not be exactly point on where you're lining those up. Just have an idea, and low left. That's a whole different discussion. But have a clue.
It's got Glocks. Every Glock shoots low left. I saw it on the internet message board.
Right. So that's like Ryan said, we're not going to go into the full weeds of things like that, but have a clue where your irons hit. If you have a red dot on your pistol, those aren't zeroed automatically as soon as you screw them on. So have a clue with your pistol too. But yeah, definitely come with you. You should feel bad if your rounds are skimming the grass on long range stuff. Like you shouldn't think like, that's weird. You should be like, boy, everyone sees how I came prepared for this. Like, think about it that way going into a match.
Yep. Tiger, how about you? Anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's basically, what you guys said, and have a general idea of how to zero a rifle. Not all scopes are the same. My advice is if you don't know how to do like a zero stop on a scope, don't mess with it. Don't worry about it. And like ask somebody who knows how to do the zero stop. Call the company, get the step-by-step, whatever it is. And yeah, like you said, whatever distance you decide to zero at, understand why you're picking that distance. If you say, hey, I'm going to pick the 5200 because some Joe Blow on the internet told me that was the only one that ever mattered, not the greatest reason, but at least you have a reason, which not everybody does. But yeah, just understand the process of zeroing. It's easier with a buddy, with a spotting scope. It's just like everything else. It's better with a friend. And
I feel like no, Tiger's downplaying how much he cares about this. This is a really serious issue, and if you're not ready for Zombie 2023, you are going to learn that zero is important. Tiger likes this so much that the first stage, stage zero, is prove to me that you brought a zeroed gun to this match. And
yeah,
so
it's
somebody will fail it.
well, lots of people are going to fail it.
A lot of people are going to fail it. And
we should take bets on it for the AAR.
it's a 6-inch plate. I was going to do a 4, but a 4 is hard to see for like red dots and iron guns, and I don't want to completely rule those out because those are legit. Those are legitimate platforms and all of that. So I'm doing a 6-inch plate. If you can't hit a 6-inch plate at 100 yards with your primary competition rifle, you didn't come prepared for the match that you're about to run.
Mark, what do you got to add to this?
Yeah. I'm probably the guy that goes a little bit overboard with my zero confirmation. But yeah, at a bare minimum, go out and get that 5-round group in for your rifle. Get a 5 or 10 round group for your pistol, and that's a great place to start. And if you have time, then start exploring the height over bore with your rifle. And if you haven't practiced a chronograph, get some ammo over a chronograph. But ultimately, you have to have that zero, or the chronograph and height over bore. All this stuff won't matter. So get out there, do that basic leg work that enables you to have a shot at performing well. And ultimately,
I don't know if you're still talking, Mike. You're breaking up real bad. We're not really able to hear you right now. All right. Hopefully we get Mike back. I'm glad he brought that up. That's what. So if you see here
and some other stuff,
Mike, we lost you for a good chunk of that. You're kind of breaking up.
I'm losing you guys on and off. I've tried to turn off the video and just go to audio, and still struggling. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yeah, we're hearing you better now, so that may have fixed it because you were breaking up for a good chunk of that.
Let me try putting my phone up higher. Is that better?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're hearing you now. So let me go off what Mike said. I'm glad he mentioned that. So throoms. Actually, that was part of our thing today. If you don't know what throoms are, there are a lot of running guns. I don't know if they use them in other matches. They're 2-3-inch little self-healing rubber targets. They're very popular in matches. One, because it's a rifle target that I can shoot at 5, 10, 15, 25 yards. Some of these matches we go to, they got bays. They have things that are hard to set up steel close enough. Obviously, or they're close enough you wouldn't want to put steel for safety reasons, and because it just destroys your steel if you're shooting it at 15 yards. So they become very popular. If you're not shooting throoms, there's still occasions where you are shooting things with a rifle a lot closer than your 50-yard, 100-yard zero. So I think height over bore is a really valuable thing to know with your rifle. And on the flip side, with pistol, kind of understanding at some different distances where your pistol hits. If you can walk it back on a piece of paper, a piece of steel, let's say you zero at 25 yards with your pistol. Well, what is it doing at, let's say, 50 yards or 100 yards? These are all things that are good match. What's that? Yeah, 7. I mean, pistol.
7.
Yeah, pistol makes a little bit less difference, especially with irons. But yeah, there's still these varying distances you really need to know. But rifle especially, because most of us have 2 inches of height over bore. And that's going to play a big part. And, me and Mike were talking today. People hate these throom targets at matches. But so at 25 yards, maybe my math is wrong here. At 25 yards, a a 2-inch throom is what is that, an 8 MOA target?
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's an 8 MOA target. At most of our rifles, if you get even the cheapest of AR-15s and any kind of factory ammo, your cheapest Wolf, that is a 4 MOA gun or better. Like if you're, most of them are probably closer to 3, 3 or better. But if you got a gun and ammo that won't shoot better than 4 MOA, throw one of them in the trash. So you've got twice that you could hit this little tiny target as long as you've done your homework and you know where your rifle hits or your pistol or whatever it is at these different distances. So I think the big thing with these match preps is you are just doing your homework and giving yourself the confidence so that when you step on that stage, there is no like, oh man, I wonder where I need to hold on this. And then all you have to do is perform. So Mark, did you have something to add?
Yeah, so height over bore is good, but another one to think about is guns laying sideways. So where does your gun go when you turn it 90 degrees to the right or to the left? Now guns and optics don't run parallel to each other, and so there's going to be some sort of difference or deviation there. Have you tried that? That's not something you need a special range for. Just lay down your gun, shoot another group. Where are you at there? Do you know that? And so we see it all the time in VTAC barricades. That's the most common thing. You get the what would you call it? Mail slot. And you poke through there, and people have no clue. And so give it a shot. Fits with everything we're saying, but not just height over, height to the side.
Absolutely. So we'll kind of go on to there, and I think let's kind of go on what Mike was mentioned. So he mentioned briefly a chronograph. So especially rifle, if you're shooting in a match with some distance, you kind of have two options, and if you have both of these options, you're better off. But so chronograph will get you your velocity. Something like a magnetospeed, one of the visual ones you shoot over a what's the sonar one?
Lab radar,
stuff like that. Getting your muzzle velocity is a good thing to have. There's 1,000 ballistic calculators on the computer, on your phone, on all kinds of things, standalone kestrels. Understanding your drop. So ideally you get something from the chronograph as a starting point, and then you can make it out to a range where you can confirm these drops at distances. That's your that's the ideal, right? If you don't have a chronograph, hopefully you can just get out and most guns you could get a general ballpark off the book and kind of get a starting thing. But confirming those drops at distance would also be really helpful, because no one wants to get up to a 600-yard target. The most you've ever shot is the 50 yards that you zeroed, and now I got to hit this IPSC at 600 yards. Like, it's possible, people have done it, but you're kind of taking a stab at the dark. Mark, add anything in on that?
No, just like you said, get the data. We could go into a big deep dive of how much we've struggled to confirm the data. You left all your true fans out because you talked about magnetospeed and lab radar, but you forgot about your base, Ryan. It's the pores. Where are all the shoot over the sensors? Chronograph guys, come on.
I said that. I said the light ones. That's what the light ones are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I had one of those, but it wasn't 223 proof.
Yeah, that's the worst part about them, right? They're bullet magnets. They suck the bullets in. But what we could talk about, and this would maybe be its own thing, is like, all right, you shot over the chronograph, you did the math on a thing, and then you went out to 500 yards, and your bullets are off by 6 or 8 inches. What happened? What went wrong? And so now we have to do truing, or try a new chronograph, or do a new ballistics calculation. And so there's some art to it beyond just the science of math says bullet drops this way. And so, thinking about those things helps. But like you said, you can get close, even just looking, well, the box says this is going to go 3150 out of my 16-inch rifle. We'll be here, we'll we'll be close. So yeah, the truing I think is really interesting, especially when you get into the longer range matches like Zombie. 1,000 yards is a whole different game than 400 or 500. So
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll let Tiger on here next. But the thing is, in a lot of like run and gun, 3-gun, I mean, we don't know what you're shooting, but most of the action shooting sports, if you throw out PRS and that like long range game, most of these targets are 4 MOA or bigger. And I think even most, from what I understand, most PRS is really 2 MOA or bigger. Just kind of, it kind of depends. But yeah, Mark, yeah, Tiger, why don't you go on and then we'll have Mike kind of go in next.
All right. Yeah. So dope truing, dope collection is my game, right? Like you guys know this. I'm the long range guy, quote unquote. Um, and yeah, you can get real close. Highly recommend, if you don't have a chronograph, find a friend who does. They're amazing tools. Even the Caldwells, I did a test of all three, and the Caldwells, they, whenever you use them correctly, they really work. I mean, it's pretty simple calculation. Bullet enters here, bullet exits here, and then like Mark said, bullet enters here and exits here eventually. But and like Ryan said, that there's a blue million ballistic calculators out there. Beyond that, people have done the math. Like that's what this, if I can get it onto the freaking thing, that's what these numbers are. That's a cheat sheet for all the guns in the world. It's gravity. Gravity works the same everywhere on the planet. Another thing to look at with with your dope, that they haven't mentioned yet, is figure out what your preferred load is for your rifle, and then buy all of your ammunition that way. If your gun really likes 69 grain PPUs, stick with that. Like, maybe the 55 grain stuff is 10 cents on the round cheaper. You know what? 10 cents on the round cheaper might lose you a match 3 months down the road. If you zeroed with the 69 and now you're shooting 55s, or if you zeroed with the 55s and now you're shooting 69s or 77s, like knowing where those different bullets are, they fly differently. It's a different bullet. You need to do all of this with all of the different loads that you're going to shoot. And that sounds like a lot of work, but I promise range days are fun. You know, um, the the only other thing that I can say on it is, like I said, I am the quote unquote long range guy of the group. I hang out with some PRS shooters, and they will absolutely tell you a 100-yard range is enough to prep for any match in the world. If you can get to 100 yards, if you can get a good solid zero there, it's enough. 300 yards is better. Obviously, whatever range you're going to be shooting at is best. But 100 and 300 are like goal yardages for being able to calculate dope out to 1,000, 1,100 yards. If you can get to 300 yards, everything else can be trued mathematically from there. It's a good practice, but 100 yards is really important. Which is good, because most local gun ranges go to 100 if it's outdoors. Indoors, you're on kind of a struggle bus if that's all you have available. That's a tough time, but 100 yards really is enough to be able to practice the fundamentals, get your chronograph data, at least get a good solid zero like we talked about earlier. Everything can be done at 100 yards to prep for any distance that you might shoot. But confirming dope at a buddy's farm is as always best. And like Mark said, if you miss by, if you paint a waterline mark on a giant piece of paper or whatever, and then you shoot it at 600 yards and you're like, man, that should have been right in that black line and it's 12 inches low. Well, trust the bullet. The bullet is not lying to you. It's going to fly there pretty regularly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I ran into that recently. the velocity from the magnetospeed said one thing. I was hitting a 6-inch by 8-inch, so not a huge plate at 500 yards. And we've been going back and forth. I don't know in my ballistic app, where the disconnect is, but I know for sure 3.9 mils is what gets me on that plate at 500 yards or 525 or whatever it is. And I don't know what's wrong with my ballistic app. It's me, because it's just math. It's something I'm putting in or inputting wrong. But I can tell you what, I've been to matches since then, and I've hit targets at that distance multiple times. So that's the right number. Somewhere in that ballistic app, I've got something fat fingered in wrong. So Mike, anything else? Oh, sorry. You can go in after Tiger here.
Yeah, another thing, again, preference, if you can get it, is to not have your targets hanging in a void. If you are trying to confirm dope at 500, 600, 700 yards, don't have them hanging 10, 12 feet up in the air where you can't see a miss. Like, if you miss 6 inches low and you see a dirt splash 800 yards behind the 500-yard target, you have no idea where that bullet went. Keep targets where you can see where your misses are, if you can. Obviously, if you can't, but being able to spot misses is huge. I know that really screwed with some people last year at Zombie, because that valley is nothing but grass, and misses it's just a void out there. Like, you can't tell where you're hitting. So
yeah, sadly, that's most of the Midwest where we shoot. It's like there's berm and then there's grass on the berm. So it's like, oh, okay, well, I hit the berm, but
cornfield.
Yeah. Mike, you got anything to add into zeroing or I guess confirming long range or anything?
No, I think we covered a lot of it.
Okay.
You want me to talk about kind of like understanding some positional stuff in the zeroing process?
Yeah, that would be great. So, yeah.
One thing that I see a lot of shooters do when they come into a stage is they zero their rifle and set up their optic from either a bench or prone or standing in their pew room, as I like to call it, and their eye relief is not set up right. So when you're going to set up your gun and confirm everything, make sure that your stock is in a position where you can get comfortably on the rifle, whether you're standing offhand, sitting, kneeling behind something, or prone. You're not going to find something that feels 100% in every single position. That's just not how the human body works. But there is a position on the gun where, hey, maybe since I know that I'm going to do almost all of my shooting in a running gun from either standing or kneeling off a barricade, then, hey, I'm going to set up where it's 85% good there. And then when I'm prone, it's kind of 75%. But I can fudge that a little bit when I'm prone, and my eye box is where it needs to be. I see a lot of guys come into a match and they can't find their reticle, and things are not working well when they get into some non-standard positions. And so when you're going and setting the gun up, understand that parallax is a real thing. A lot of us are running red dots or LPVOs. Red dots are not truly parallax free. I saw a DoD test, and I think we mentioned this in the red dot episode, where you had been surprised when they went and tested. There was some pretty well-known red dots that had some parallax shift. Now, how significant would be based off of the range and accuracy standards you're trying to hold to. And so you need to find that out for yourself, understand that. Most of the LPVOs we're all running have fixed parallax, whether it's 100 or 150 yards. That can vary by the optic. But understand that that'll come into play a little bit. So make sure that when you're zeroing and you're trying maybe a couple different positions, that depending on where your head is behind the optic can affect your zero. So I know that was kind of a little technical moment, but it's something to think about.
Absolutely. So if you are, I'll add into that. If you are using an LPVO or some kind of variable power optic, medium, whatever, you want to set that with your magnification at the max, generally, I think in just about every scope I've ever seen, as you zoom down, that eye box, that kind of sweet spot gets bigger. So if you got a 1 to 8, 8x is going to be the tightest that eye box is, and at 1x you're going to have a lot more room. So if you do that at your max magnification, when you zoom out, you'll have a little bit more generous eye box to work with.
That's
Along with
100% of the optics, Ryan.
is that I was gonna say, I think it's just physics. Yeah,
that's just how physics
So-
works. Yeah.
yeah. That's what I thought. I don't that, but you know, manufacturers can do a lot of weird things to bend physics to what they want. But yeah, that's generally the rule of thumb. And the other thing there is, I would say is, if your IOX is good, if your eye relief is good standing and prone, if you can find one that works with both of those, that's probably going to work in 98% of your situations. Those two tend to be the most extreme. The other one thing is, if you're shooting with plates, you, depending on your plates and what you've got, on your chest, that may affect where how you shoulder your rifle. So if you got an adjustable stock, maybe you got to click it in. If you've got a non-adjustable stock, you may want to really pay attention to that, because if you got plates and that buttstock's on the plate, you're adding 3/4 of an inch, depending on the plates further away. That's really going to have an effect on your cheek weld and your eyes. So anyone want to add anything before we go on to the next topic? Okay. So at this point, we've got a zeroed guns, rifle, pistol, zeroed. You're confident from 5 yards out to however far that you think you're going to have to shoot, that you know where that bullet's going to hit. If you don't know where that bullet's going to hit, you're just kind of slinging lead. So we've got that. The next thing I would say is practice. So me and Mike took a class from Sean Murphy, a friend of ours. He was on the show at the Legion 2021, I think, episode. So that was one of our earlier after actions. So definitely take a look at that. But he gave a class, and one of the things we ended with, and some of this class kind of spurred some of these thoughts, was I would call it a know your limits drill. I guess you call it a couple things, but we basically had a piece of steel with pistol. You could use paper or steel with rifle if you wanted. And you would shoot and continually increase your cadence that you're shooting until you could no longer keep it within that piece of steel, the A box, whatever your goal is. And then once you got outside that, now that's kind of your limit. That's where I can shoot. Then you worked on backing that down just to the bottom, right underneath that limit, so that you continually shot and you kind of know, this is my cadence. So maybe you're picking up, you start at like 1 shot per second, and you get up to where, you just start to miss, and that's a 1-7 split or 2-0 split, whatever that is. You can have a shot timer. You don't have to have a shot timer for this. Just giving out numbers. So then okay, I'm starting to drop shots at 2-0. I need to back down to a 0.22 split. And you know what? At 0.22, I can keep that on a target every time. Same thing with rifle. Maybe I'm shooting this fast, and then it starts getting outside the A zone, and I got to slow down. But you kind of go through some rounds that way and start programming in, this is how fast, where I'm at my skill level right now, that I can visually shoot and get the hits that I want to get. And obviously do this at different distances, because your splits at 5 yards with pistol are definitely not going to be the splits you have at 25 yards. So you guys do anything like that? Tiger, you got anything to add to that, or anything similar you do?
Yeah. So I've never done the know your limits quite like that. It's a fantastic way to do it. Don't take my not doing it as a reason not to do it, because I think I'm going to start doing that. That's a great that's a great test. One thing I've always done, and it goes back to the dope and the wind conversation that I was kind of having earlier, is figuring out your bracket. So say you've got an 8-inch plate, whatever an 8-inch plate is at whatever distance you want to hold that accuracy standard, right? Figuring out where you can basically hold anywhere on an 8-inch plate, what that looks like in your scope, right? Like it in your reticle, figuring out what that 8-inch plate is, where if you hold dead center, maybe your horseshoe dot circles the 8-inch plate at 100 yards. And you know that if you do that, it doesn't matter if the wind's blowing 10 mile an hour or not at all, you're going to hit that plate, right? In the long range world, they call it figuring out your mile per hour of your gun, or the brackets of your gun. Usually it's 1 mil is, you go from the half mil hash to the half mil hash, or from one side of the U to the other. But figuring that out, and then that way that if you put that dot somewhere on that target, or if it's a full-size dipstick, right? Like, okay, now if I'm shooting at paper, as long as I know that the center of this reticle is somewhere on that paper, I'm going to be within my accuracy standard regardless of other conditions. It's a way that you can speed yourself up because you're not trying to hold dead center, right? Like you're not trying for that perfect A zone hit. So that's kind of how I've always tried to increase speed, is I figure out like where I can, what's the term in USPSA, shoot the streak, or paint the target, however you want to call it. But the know your limits thing sounds a lot better, because that's an actual measurable goal, and that sounds like something you can download a metronome app on your phone, have it sitting next to you. All right, I'm going to squeeze the trigger with this metronome and see how long I can hold it on my target. All right, I did it 10 shots in a row where it's 1 shot a second. Cool, let's double that. Let's do it a shot every half second. And just start speeding it up until, like you said, until the wheels fall off.
Yeah, and I don't want to get the idea though that like, I mean, I that's fine way to train it with like the metronome, or like I said, you can look at shot time.
Yeah.
I think the important thing is you just know that feeling. I know that this is the feeling and this is the sight. And I use examples, but like I don't know what my splits are at these different distances. But at this point, I kind of know the feel of it. Mark, you got anything?
Yeah, so the thing that I was thinking about kind of builds on what Tiger was saying, but it's not so much about the wind or the sight picture. For me, it's more about forcing shots. And this was one of my problems at Zombie last year on the medium range stuff. You can want to take the shot, but is it the right, is it when you should take the shot? And there's an old Pat Kelly video about how you have your natural kind of wiggle, whatever your wiggle is, where you're trying to find, all right, where do you break the shot? Spending time getting used to that wiggle so that you break the shot when you can, not when you want to. And it's kind of like Tiger said with the wind, and it's about bracketing, but it's not so much a speed thing, but a mental thing. Like, when do I shoot? Not when I want to shoot, but when I can shoot, and getting that mental kind of thing. It goes back to, like you're saying, with the programming, and it's not so much speed or cadence, but it's just like, no, that's not my shot. Yes, that is my shot. That kind of thing. And it's a rifle thing, not so much pistol thing, for me at least. But I've been trying to think more about that lately, because it's so easy to fall in that mental thing. Like, boy, that's like, I'm on enough, and you just. I see it in 3-gun. I used to do it in 3-gun all the time when we'd be shooting off of like a standing VTAC barricade, where you're not quite perfectly set, but you're like, it's just there. It's there. It's gonna ting, and you're not getting your hits because you're forcing your shots. So I've been trying to think about that stuff. Kind of ties in with both what you're saying, I think.
Yeah. Now this is, since you mentioned Pat Kelly, because this is like one of the greatest things that helped my offhand rifle, and I think this kind of goes in. He's just a brilliant shooter. And this is really, especially like offhand stuff at like plate racks, 50, 60, 70 plus yards. the way that he would shoot them a lot of the times was, instead of trying to hold on that plate and get that wobble, like Mark, get that wobble zone down small enough to hit the plate, he would actually like sweep up, so you go from like the bottom left to upper right, and he's sweeping up and he's, prepping the trigger so that as soon as that scope, that reticle is across the plate, he's breaking the shot then. There's a little tip to maybe experiment with and try, instead of just trying to find especially in action shooting where we're trying to do this real fast, really taking the time to get my wobble zone small enough to where it just stays inside a 6-inch plate at 70 yards is not real easy to do. But if you can just sweep up and then bam, break that, it goes down, and then bam, break that. And it's not necessarily a huge exaggerated streak like I'm showing on the screen, but it can just be boom, boom, boom. And just as long as you've got something to control the shot is kind of the idea. So, Mike, shooting wise, the like know your limits drill, some of the stuff Sean Murphy talked about. You got anything to add to that?
Yeah, yep. It's just it's important to find the edge of that comfort zone. Back in 2019, I think that was something that Ryan really encouraged me to do. That I found I picked up some speed because I was accurate enough. And while we all want that first round impact and that's the goal, there definitely is a balance of you're slowing yourself down and tapping the brakes too much. I think really when it comes down to a lot of what we're talking about, though, is the mental management side of the house. Whether it's knowing when to fire the shot, or I need to hold off in my offhand rifle wobble, or shooting a small pistol target. The mental management is a big key, and you need to be able to know when to get out of your own head. As odd as that sounds, we see it a lot as ROs. Is we see someone that we know is 100%, 110% capable of making this hit. They come in, they're gassed, they fire one, and then they fire that quick second follow up, and then all of a sudden, mentally they're lost, and they just go to war with his target. And something that I had to learn the hard way back in the early days was there's moments where it's literally you just deep breathe in, exhale out, and re-engage, and just give yourself that mental reset moment. It can be important if you get off your natural shooting cadence, or if you're dealing with shooting something long range off a funky barricade or whatever. That momentary mental reset can be really important. And think about, hey, am I in the right position? Do I need to adjust something real quick? Because if you just threw 3 or 4 rounds and you didn't make an impact, and hey, we just checked our gun, it's zeroed. I was making impacts at stages all the way up to here, and all of a sudden I'm off. Good chance it's not your gear, it's you. So learn how to put your wheels back on if they've started to come off on a stage. And the great place to learn how to do that is in these practice sessions. Have some, a B8 or some throoms. Even today when I was changing zero on a pistol dot, I got partway through a 10-round string and said, you know what, I'm going to start pushing these. And so just took that second and then got right back on target, finish it up, and did a nice 10-ring group for a 25-yard zero. So, yeah, mental management. And you can teach yourself mental management in dry fire. Understand, hey, I'm looking at my dot. I'm starting to get a little bit too much wobble. All right, I'm back in. I'm back on. You can do it with your rifle too. A lot of people wonder how I've been somewhat successful at this like intermediate rifle that we engage a lot, and we're seeing more in 3-gun. And a lot of it is I'm willing to take that maybe as I come into a position, or maybe as I transition into a target. And believe me, the breath feels like it takes an eternity, but that little reset to kind of calm yourself, focus, that could lead to a first round impact. Well, that's that 1 second breathe in out with maybe a first or second round impact as you reset and you re-engage with that particular target. to keep you from throwing 5-10 rounds at it. So it's the little things. I probably rambled on here. I don't even know if I'm really answering the question that Ryan wanted, but
Nope.
hey, just something to think
Nope.
about.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I mean, that's the point of what we're talking about. What we're going to kind of, talk a little bit more about is mentally preparing yourself. And some of that mental preparedness comes in the preparation of the zeroing, the running some drills. Maybe we'll talk about some dry fire. I know we've talked about it in other episodes, but the idea is that when you get to a stage, you have all the foundation in place that you can just flow through the stage. Top athletes talk about that like flow state. I mean, all of us shooting here have probably been in it. I know some of my best stages don't feel very fast. Like I just kind of go through and just do the things, and I don't necessarily remember like every sight picture. I don't remember. I mean, sometimes I'm even in it where like it's happening and I'm kind of like noticing things going on with it, but I'm not thinking about the shooting. I'm thinking about whatever that little thing that's going on. Maybe something's changed and I need to make a correction or something like that. But the more subconscious you can make your shooting, the less of that consciousness you have to bring in. I think the better off you are, at the risk of getting maybe too zen here. But that's the point of this preparation leading up to a match, is that, like Mike said, you're 5 stages in and you start missing on a target. You can quickly in your head go, okay, well, I knew I had a good zero beforehand. I know I just hit a 300-yard target that last one, so I'm zeroed. I should be able to hit a 200, and then do what you have to do. Take yourself out of it, get that breath, reset, and have confidence in your skills, your equipment, and kind of the prep work that you did leading up to this. So I guess Tiger, do you have anything else we haven't talked about that you do kind of prepping for a match?
Yeah. So to kind of build off of that, that Zen state, that total confidence. It's really about building confidence in your gear. And that's something that I feel like a lot of people don't have, is they they don't go out and they don't spend the time in the dirt, quote unquote, to make sure that, hey, my rifle is zeroed. If I'm missing, it's my fault. Like or something has gone wrong, right? Like there's something wrong. It's the natural state of this shooter equipment setup is that I can hit this target at this range. I know that. I've done it before. I've done it 100 times. And the mental aspect, like you say, is a big deal. Ryan, me and you have talked about it. We don't tend to shoot our own matches as match directors very well. Like we shoot them okay, we do fine, but we have so much other shit in our head going on that we're not focused on that flow state. That, hey, I'm just out here having a good time. I'm shooting. I'm hitting my targets. Hey, what? No, I need to talk to this RO about this, or I need to do whatever. And taking the breath, like Mike said, is a big deal. I'll finish it off with a quick little story here. Last year, Zombie, I'm proofing stages with John Drossard, who's a fantastic shooter, right? And I had the one stage where it was the double taps out, like 7 targets that each shooter had to double tap, and he struggled on the first target, and then I didn't. Right? I tap, ding ding, and then he struggled on target 2, and then I didn't. And if I'd been thinking about it, I probably would have given him a second to collect himself, but he never had a chance to take that breath because he was trying to not let me down as his partner, and he was pushing, he was forcing shots like Mark's talking about. He's taking shots that he doesn't need to take. And if he'd taken a breath, he probably would have done the stage better. We would have shot the stage better, which we were just proofing. It doesn't matter. But, that just take a second, collect yourself, know your equipment is good, know you're right, know you're dope, know you've done the prep work, and and have fun with it. Like that's something that a lot of people really get wrapped around the axle on in these competitions. I've got to do really well. Don't forget, you're out on a range. Like it's a good day. It's better than any day at work, right? And that's one thing that I've really been the last couple of years, because I haven't competed a whole lot. Whenever I start prepping for a match, hey, win or lose, I'm out here. I'm having a good time. I want to win. I want to shoot well, but it's a good day regardless.
Absolutely. Mark, what do you got? What do you got to add to that? I
I
know
guess
you have wisdom.
no, I don't know about that. Just maybe rewind to the first 2 minutes of this talk where we should have started and said, why do we do this match prep? It's like Tiger said, you go in, so it's just about you. They always say, well, this is the test of man and equipment. Let's take the equipment out and just see what you can bring to the table as you that day. And that's what you're going for. It's how did you do that day? Not, well, the scope was a little loose and we tried this new ammo. It's like, yeah, you can have a whole laundry list of excuses, but like if you come in and say, no, I know the exact stage Tiger was talking about, and I know I was forcing shots. And, it's like, it was me. It was, the gun was right. Everything was right. Make the match about what you can do, not what your gear is holding you back on or those sort of things. And then, maybe close the feedback loop too, that how many of our after action reports, maybe not this channel, but people get done and they say, oh yeah, my bipod was loose and my muzzle device didn't have rock set on it. And so, yeah, I really need to correct those things. And then you ask them how their next match went. And they say, well, my bipod is still a little loose and I didn't get the rock set quite done. It's like you're never really fixing those problems. Like that's why we do this match prep, so we can focus on the match, do the prep so you can focus on the match. And maybe we should have started with that. If you're still listening to this point, thanks, I guess. But that's the goal here. That's what we're trying to do with this whole be prepared, so that you could focus on the you part.
Absolutely. So I like that. This is a good segue. So gear wise, and I'm going to start this off first with a public service announcement. Stop screwing with your gear. Just full stop there. I know we all want to do better. I know we all we want that gun that is just tuned just that much better. Do you know what? It doesn't matter. Something Mike does. Me and Mike are both very alike in this and that. And Mike likes to play with stuff, but generally once we build a rifle and we get a rifle or something like squared away, we don't change much. Like we've built it, we've kind of figured out. We don't change much. And you know what? I mean, me and Mike shoot a lot of matches together, and it's a very rare occurrence that we have any kind of malfunction, any kind of gun maintenance issue, because it worked yesterday and I haven't changed anything. So the chances are really good it's going to work tomorrow. Now, do things wear, do stuff? I mean, we shot a match last weekend. Me and Mike both had like a double feed. That's the first double feed I can ever remember having that wasn't shooter induced. And this one may have been shooter induced, but not from I know what Mark's thinking of, because I was too close to a port once and brass fell back. But me and Mike both had it. We cleared them. That was it that day. So stuff happens. I mean, in these matches, but we rarely, there's parts aren't falling off, scopes aren't coming loose. It's a very rare occurrence because we just build stuff. We try to maintain it and it just runs. So that's my public service announcement. I would say either before you do all this match prep or a little bit before the match, clean your guns. I'm kind of I'm not great at this. I've not cleaned my rifle all season, my pistol either. Legion's an important match. I'm planning on doing some actual cleaning because I was getting black on my hands today from shooting pistol because instead of cleaning my gun, I just put a little bit more oil on it. We call it good. Well, it's bad enough now. It's slinging oil and carbon all over my hands and glasses, and that's probably time to clean. But cleaning is important because when parts are clean, you can see issues with it. You can see the hairline crack that's forming in the slide, or, oh crap, I've busted a lug off my AR's bolt, whatever it is. That's where you see stuff when it's clean. When it's all covered in carbon, you're not going to see that. So maybe give them a clean. What's that, Mike?
I was going to say, here's something to consider. For a lot of people, number one, when they clean, they're not putting enough lube back on. So number one,
True.
make it wet. And then after you clean, before you go to your big match, try to get a time to go put 20, 30, 50 rounds through the gun after you've cleaned it. And I know this
Yep, I was
sounds
just gonna
like
say that.
well, I just cleaned it. Why would I do that? Well, you just had it apart, and things change. You might not have had a pin back in together the way you thought. Or maybe the lube hasn't made its way into where it needs to be. So go ahead and plan. If you do not have the ability to fire it before a match, then get some dry fire reps in. Make sure that the trigger sounds like that it's falling and resetting, and that things are moving freely, and that they're behaving right, that things aren't locked up. Ultimately, it would really suck for you to show up, and because you cleaned it, you created an issue. So yeah, it's kind of the thing too, is it's like fouling the bore. A lot of the guys that do a lot of precision understand that they're after they do a deep clean, that their zero could be a little bit off. And so, a lot of the guys that are into some of that stuff will make sure that they have an opportunity to, hey, we're going to re-foul the bore, re-let this shift back to where it needs to be for the match or the hunt, or whatever that opportunity for that shot is. So, and then also, while you're cleaning and going over the gun for that final time, check your witness marks. Also, have the witness marks there in the first place. That it's pretty important to have those, so if something comes loose or shifts. I'm a big fan of witness marking, and blue Loctite is your friend, folks. It's not permanent, and also means that while it'll help keep things from coming loose, you need to check those items that were secured with it.
Yep, absolutely. I actually like witness marking with a silver Sharpie, because most of our stuff's like black or dark colored. The silver Sharpie will wear over time, which means that I physically have to go through and check it every so often just to make sure that it's still there. And then when I check it, I'm making sure, hey, nothing's moved. So yeah, those were two things I was going to add. Absolutely. Function test. We had a friend a bunch of years back shooting 3-gun. He cleaned his gun, his rifle, the night, like after the first night of a match before the second, and somehow was able to get the bolt in upside down, was still able to get the cam pin in, which you shouldn't be able to do, but I think I don't know what happened there, but he was able to get it
Probably
in.
alcohol.
And yeah, probably alcohol. Either the dimple wasn't enough on the bolt, or he really hammered it in there. But next day takes his first shot, and that gun locks up tight because lugs are not in the places that the correct orientation. So you got to be able to function test your stuff before you go shoot it. I'd say, well, I'm telling you to clean your gun. Modern guns can run very, very dirty as long as they've got lubrication. Things are better, wetter. Just remember that in most situations. So
there's
so
kind of
if
a
you
tier list to it, though. You could say
Yeah.
there's a tier list to it. Like your shotguns, you're going to want to clean more than your rifle. Your
Yes,
race
yeah.
gun, you're going to clean more than your Glock. Like everything has an order. And so, and even
Except-
barrels, going to barrels, I would argue don't need to be cleaned as much as
Yeah,
most people clean them.
Yeah.
So
I won't run anything through I'll clean the bore a little bit, the lugs on my AR, but like I'm not going to run a patch through my rifle, or at least anything aggressive. Maybe just a patch just to get the big stuff. But yeah, I would agree. Yeah,
We're
I
gonna
mean,
have to put a disclaimer on that section for our friend John Shelley.
yeah,
Shout out to our
yeah,
buddy that can't stand anything if it's not white glove clean.
yeah, and that's what I'm. Don't I mean, you don't have to have your gun look like it's brand new. Just a basic cleaning just to get the big stuff off. I mean, is probably ideal. Having said that, again, I've got guns that haven't been cleaned all year. My shotgun hasn't been cleaned in 2 years now. So I'm kind of at this point, since I don't shoot any majors with it, we're just gonna send it and see how dirty the thing can get. It's only had one malfunction in 2 years now, so most likely ammo related. But yeah. Anything to add to that, Tiger, Mark? Kind of gun maintenance before match.
Yeah, I do. I check all of my. You guys witness mark. I don't. I should. I used to. And then all of it wore off, and I didn't have my. I did orange fluorescent like paint marker was my witness mark. And then a kid took it and painted my car with it, and I got really mad and threw it in the woods, and it was a whole thing. And I haven't witness marked since. As far as gun cleaning goes, I clean them in September. I picked the month of September. I go through, I clean all of my weapons except my precision rifle, because I don't clean my precision rifle unless its groups start opening up. Also, barrels were meant to have bullets go down them, nothing else. That's just the way I feel about it. Again, unless your accuracy starts to suffer, don't worry about cleaning your barrel. I do check my scope mount, check all the screws, for the rings or the unimount, make sure it's tight to the upper. I check my muzzle device. I tend to run suppressors, but those of you who don't, still check the thing on the end of your barrel, because if it's loose and rattling, that will absolutely affect your bullet. You might not think it does, but just a little bit will throw your bullet off a lot. So yeah, my pre-match maintenance is just taking a Torx bit or a hex bit to all of the various screws on the outside of the rifle, and making sure that they're as tight as I feel like they should be. If I just recently got a fix-it stick kit about a year ago. That's been great because I have actual measurements now. It's not just ugga-duggas or drunken pulls. And beyond that, yeah, just make sure everything feels normal, feels right. Like you should have enough rounds through your rifle and through your pistol that whenever you go to the range to confirm the zero, like we were talking about earlier, or dry firing in your basement or in your garage or whatever it is, you should know what it feels like and make sure it feels right. If it doesn't feel right, something is wrong.
Yeah, let me this is something I've not confirmed myself. I've heard from a fairly, I think I heard it on the Everyday Sniper podcast, but there was kind of a rash of, this is along with like the fix-it sticks and torque wrenches. There's kind of a rash of people breaking, I think it was the spur mounts. The thing to be cautious of, every time you put that torque wrench on and you crank it and it clicks, you could be tightening that bolt ever so much more. For a torque wrench to work, basically you crank it, if it's the click style, till it clicks. That's at the torque.
Yeah.
Every time you click it past that, you can be tightening them. So what would happen is what Tiger's talking about. Every time these guys would go out to the range, they'd put a torque wrench on everything and, click, 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 make sure everything's tight. Well, you're slowly tightening more and more. Eventually, that, it fatigues the bolt, it fatigues the metal. So be cautious with how, yeah.
I do it before the match, which I shoot, 5, 6, 7 matches a year. And I switch guns enough, like that usually happens once or twice a year where I'll click everything over. But so, there was a rash of PRS guys breaking spur mounts because they were doing it, once or twice a week. and you will absolutely start shearing bolts that way.
Yeah. So just that's just a word of caution. So let's start wrapping this up. Mike, why don't you start us off? What are your kind of closing thoughts on this? Just match prep in general.
There's always some match day jitters, but think about those things that kind of eat at you the most and get them taken care of. It's really easy to kind of panic and last minute try to correct gear. I've had issues with compensators and all sorts of things, but try to set aside the time that you can enjoy the match prep and it's not chaos, because you're going to walk away with a lot more confidence in your gear if you've got the time set aside and you can enjoy it. And you're going to have better lessons, better notes, better takeaways, and enjoy the journey. So
Good. That's good advice. Mark, how about you?
Oh, I guess I don't know. I want to say something cliche, like if you're not preparing to win, you're preparing to, something like that. But I think Mike kind of stole it from me. It's like if you want to have a good time at this, spend a little time ahead of, before the match, and set yourself up for success. I guess was what I'd say. Make it about what you can do, not what your gear is holding you back from. You can only do as well as your preparation for the match. So set yourself up for success and you'll have a lot more fun, I think.
Yep, absolutely. Tiger?
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm as guilty as anyone else about not prepping properly for a match. And I struggled. I had a bad match when that didn't happen. Once you get your gear set up, don't fuck with it. Have all the fun prepping for it. Remember, it's supposed to be fun. Range days are good. You'll have more fun at the match the more time you spend on the range beforehand. And yeah, like Mark said, if cliche item number 7, go.
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is all supposed to be fun. I mean, sometimes confirming 0 or something like that, like I can think of more fun things to do with a gun, but it's also like I can think of a lot worse things. So definitely enjoy it, have fun. I'll encourage you. This is something I started doing, and I don't know if this is going to show real well. I got these little Right in the Rain notebooks for each of my guns to start. So I know people are like, oh, they got a dope book or whatever, which is good, especially the long range guys. They're putting down their drops and they're but I'm starting to keep these for all my guns so I can kind of better track. Especially if you switch between a couple different divisions or a couple different things, I'm putting like what date I last zeroed, what ammo I zeroed with. I got muzzle velocity for a couple different rounds in here, drops. I have the throoms, like what my hold looks like, what that kind of thing. A little bit of paperwork, writing it. You don't have to have a notebook. You could do it in your phone and notes, but maybe taking some notes, when you're doing this prep, write some stuff down, and then you can refer to it. And it's just to help you feel confident so that when you go out there, you can shoot to your potential. We all shoot with, we all, if you've shot long enough, you've shot with that guy whose gun never makes it through a match. We shot with some guys last week and they were really good shooters. They still placed pretty well. The one guy was on his third gun or third upper by the end of the match. And the other guy had 1 or 2 gun issues. Gas blocks come loose and this and that. And it's like, and they were phenomenal shooters. I would have loved, we ended up beating them. We were first, they were second. I would have loved to have seen how close we would have got, or could they have beat us if they would have not had so many gear malfunctions. And it's easy to say, well, they were better shooters. They probably would have beat it. But your gear running through the whole match, knowing your holds, knowing your zero, like that's part of the sport, that's part of the importance of this. So make sure you know how your gear works. Make sure you know that it's going to work, that it's going to go bang. Not, I put a new trigger in the night before and well, now my rifle doesn't reset. And, well, I would have won the match, but my trigger died on me. It's like, well, no, you wouldn't have won the match because you didn't have gear that ran, So put a little bit of prep work in. It's fun. Shooting's almost always fun. So put a little bit of prep work in, do a little homework, and I would just about guarantee on match day you'll have a much more enjoyable experience, because now all you got to do is show up and do what you do. Throw some dry fire in before that. We haven't really talked about that, but throw a little dry fire in. Positional with rifle, pistol stuff, and then show up the day of and just have fun. I mean, that's the whole point. And then once you're done, drink some bourbon. But make sure you bring some bourbon for me and Mike too, because we like drinking bourbon with all you guys. So I think we're gonna wrap it up here. It's just over an hour. We're gonna try to do a little bit more of these. We've been kind of quiet lately. I know we got 2 more after actions me and Mike need to hammer out at some point. So thanks for listening. Hope we see you out in a match here soon. Bye.